a famous war hero, buried on the private property of a rich industrialist, somewhere in the countryside, on a site dubbed the Hero's Mountain, far away from his peers and the court of the capital? What happened here? Let us take a look at why General Radetzky, one of the most important military leaders of Imperial Austro-Hungary, is buried next to a wealthy, but civilian, shoe manufacturer. Johann Joseph Wenzel Anton Franz Karl Graf Radetzky von Radetz was born in 1766 in Bohemia, which at this point in history was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Radetzky joined the military as a cuirassier, which is a type of cavalry named after the piece of torso armor, the cuirass, and whose members carry both a pistol and a sword, and he quickly rose through the ranks and became a lieutenant general, for which the Imperial Army had the rather elaborate title of Lieutenant Field Marshal, in 1809 after the Battle of Aspern against the French troops, which was the first big loss on the battlefield for Emperor Napoleon, and in this role Radetzky was also a participant in the Battle of Wagram, which the French and their allies won, but nevertheless, having been allowed to take part in it, added to Radetzky's reputation as a brave leader and skilled military strategist. From 1831 to 1857, he was Commander General of the Austrian Army in Lombard Venetian Kingdom, and since 1836 he held the rank of Lieutenant General. His biggest military success was the quelling of the nationalist uprising in what today is Italy in 1848 and 49, where several regions wanted to split off from the Habsburg Empire and form an independent Italian national state. Most of the decisions he made and actions he ordered during that conflict would be classified as war crimes today, such as the shooting of prisoners and public mass executions. He retired in 1857, aged 90, and died from pneumonia the following year. Joseph Gottfried Pargfrieder was said to be born around 1787 in Hungary, but we do not know for sure, and he also claimed that his father was Emperor Joseph II, where we are very sure it's not true. He became wealthy by supplying food, shoes, and various kinds of cloth to the Austrian army, starting when the Napoleon Wars began, so we are talking about the time between 1798 and 1815. In 1813, he bought Wetzdorf Castle, a small building in rural Hungary, and started renovating it in a classicistic style, which seeks to mimic the aesthetic of Roman and Greek antiquity. Radetzky's victory over the Sardinian army in the Battle of Custoza in 1848 inspired Pargfrieder to build a hero's memorial ground for Radetzky, and Field Marshal Maximilian von Wimpfen right in his castle gardens. Now, where is the connection between the two men who were both successful in their own right? And more importantly, what made Radetzky, the old war hero, refuse to be laid to rest in Vienna, the old imperial city, and instead chose a castle that was not even his? Drumroll please. Gambling debts. Radetzky was a big spender, and one of his passions was gambling, more precisely playing cards. Him and Pargfrieder were gambling buddies, and at one point, when Radetzky did run out of money to pay him back, he preemptively signed away the rights to his corpse, and this way, he ended up being buried with all military honors, even in the presence of Emperor Franz Joseph, but not really in a hot spot. What is important to note here is that Radetzky was the second non-royal ever to be buried in the imperial crypt in Vienna, with the first having been Maria Theresia's nanny, who essentially raised her, and today is the only non-royal person lying there. Radetzky was promised his final resting place close to the royal family when he was still alive, and he gambled away that privilege regardless. Maybe I'm too harsh toward Heroes Mountain. Today, it's a tourist attraction, the location of historical reenactments, and the famous Spanish riding school has a training center there. Apart from a crypt which holds the graves of Radetzky, von Wimpfen, and of course Pargfrieder himself, who was buried sitting up because he thought it looked better, there's a total of 169 busts of Austrian military heroes from the 19th century. The grounds also feature a winery and a prehistoric village. Those two attractions were obviously added later, and if the concept of getting all the dead war heroes together in one place reminds you of something, yes, the bust garden was inspired by Valhalla, according to Pargfrieder himself. What we can learn from this story is probably, do not gamble your corpse away, or you will end up buried in a rich man's garden. Thank you for listening.